Coaching in Session.
Your exclusive destination for unparalleled personal and professional growth.
With your host, Michael Rearden.
Whether you choose to live within limits or break free, your mindset journey begins here.
Welcome, Samantha Kane, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
Wonderful. Thanks for having me on. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for coming on. Today, we're going to be talking about your work. You are a conscious guide, and we're going to be learning a little bit more about what that means, because the world needs more consciousness in the sense of, are we even paying attention? And I heard this wonderful thing. I think it was more of a joke, where there was a woman saying, "Is there a doctor around? Is there a doctor around?" And there was a guy laying unconscious on the floor. And a guy comes and goes, "I'm a doctor of philosophy." And the girl's like, "Are you joking?" And then she's going on to tell he's going to die. And then he goes, "But did he truly live?" So the doctor of psychology is thinking in a different term or in a different realm of where life is going. And sometimes we can have our own perspectives of how we would like our life to go or how life should go. And sometimes we get lost because we get distracted in what other people are doing in their lives. So to bring some awareness of what we're doing is definitely going to be a refresher, especially around this time of year, because a lot of people are going to be looking not only at the world, but themselves. But before we do all that, can you please tell us who you are, what you do, and of course, how you help people?
Sure. Thank you. Wow, what an intro. I love everything you just said, especially that story. That was a very nice little twist there I wasn't expecting. I love a little flick of humor. So I'm Samantha, and I am a holistic life coach, but I call myself a conscious guide because that seems to adopt or kind of showcase a little bit better of what I do. And essentially, I'm just bringing self-awareness in to my clients' lives, where this is such a rush and fast-paced world. And I used to live it because I used to be in corporate for decades in various jobs, various facets. I've been in the workforce in many different areas. So I have a lot of experience and background with a lot of different things and a lot of different teams and different personalities. But the one commonality that I've come to learn is that we're going too fast. And that's why I'm very big on slowing everything down for myself. And then also B, this awareness that we have or lack thereof. And I feel like so many people are just going at such a pace that their life is flashing by. And that's why that was such an excellent intro that you gave, because that really hits it. That's exactly what it is. And it's such a travesty that we do to ourselves. We go about life and it's passing by so fast that we go, what happened? It's like that example that we often think of where you're driving in a car, you're driving along. All of a sudden you're at your destination and then you're like, whoa, how did I get here? And you weren't even conscious of your driving, which of course is scary, but also where were you? Where are you? Where are you being and with yourself? And so as something I like to say, I did not coin this phrase, but something I have adopted and live my life by very strongly is Be Here Now by the great Ram Dass, which means to be present and to be with oneself. And so in all my writings, I love poetry and I love writing. I'm a writer, and throughout my work and social media and all that, one of my great joys is writing emails to my clients and just writing in general. And I always capitalize the word be, B-E, because well-being is who we are being in every given moment. And I like to help people remind themselves of that.
Yeah, I love everything you said. And one of the things I want to begin with today is the area of moving too fast. And I was thinking of so many different stories in my life and just in the real world. I'm sure people know what a fan is, where it could be a ceiling fan or it could be one of the rotary fans. And if you look at the fan, it typically has anywhere from 2 to 5 blades. Generally, the ones in our homes are going to have about 3 blades, and they're going to vary from different sizes. So when the fan is not on and it's not rotating, you can count all 3 blades very easily. But the moment you turn it on, How many blades are there? It could be anyone's guess because it's just moving so quickly. And I started to think about, there's a moment in my life when I was 18 or 19 where I was going into a corporate job actually. And I was like, okay, going into work, and I was looking at the cement. And when you create cement, they create these lines to help with breakage and frost and runoff. So there's always sections. So the cement walkways or the sidewalks, they look like squares. So there's always a new square. And I remember looking at the ground before I was going into the building, parked the car, and I was like, okay, let me go in the building, got my badge in my hand. And I was just looking at the ground, and I just saw these lines, kind of like the fans of or the blades of the fan. And I just kind of saw my life kind of flashing before my eyes. And I was like, whoa, like as soon as I got to the door, like I was afraid to even swipe my badge. Like I think I would have had more courage and more bravery to say, I'm done, I'm going home. Or I would have got in my car and just never went back. But I went in, I finished up the summer, and I was like, okay, let me figure out what I want to do was teaching. And just that moment, right? I realized how fast something can happen, because during that time, I was also seeing teachers retire. I was fast forwarding my life to say, hey, is this what I want? Is this what I want to be? I was looking at managers and I was looking at executives, and I was like, okay, this is what you've attained. Is this what I want? So I was using more perspective in the terms of, let me look at your life, not for what I can get from it, but what I think I will have at the end of it. Because we all can look at a race, for example, and if a person wins the race, what do they get? They get put on a pedestal, they get a trophy, maybe some flowers, some admiration, some interviews, and that's basically what you get when you win a race, right? And of course, you get the feelings of feeling good. But when I was starting to think of my race in life, or how I was proceeding through life, it wasn't so much about rushing to get to the end or rushing to get to the goal. It was maybe stopping instead of seeing that sidewalk pass me by as it did, maybe to look up at the sky or to feel the wind or to start to hear the birds, because the only thing I was focused on was the things that I didn't want to do or the things that I had to do. So there was no awareness in my moment there. But then again, it felt like if I didn't pay attention, my life would have been gone before I knew it. And I would have looked back at 65 or 70, whenever I would retire, and I would have had regret then. I would have said, I regret not paying attention, or I would regret not choosing a different path. And I can't just just imagining how many people they get into those scenarios and they still do things because maybe their passion is not going to bring them any money or something like that. Or maybe they don't fully feel in alignment with what they're doing or what they should be doing. And there's a lot of questions that go on. So I wanted to kind of go through a typical scenario of how you would help people slow down, how you would help people be more aware, how you would help people become more aligned into who they can become, who they truly want to be.
Yes, I love all that you said. And that's so true, not just for you, for all of us. Just as human beings, part of us seems to want to explore and tap into our inherent natural capabilities that we all have. And then there's a part of us that just gets stuck. Or, I don't even like saying the word stuck because you really feel it when you say that word, right? I know there's better words for that, but for the case of this conversation, I think that's what happens. And people get so comfortable with where they are that they forget, or I like to say forget, because I feel like in all of this, the summation of it, the big umbrella statement here is that we do forget because there's a remembrance that is forgotten. So it's not that we're forgetting, like we're having a lapse in something. It's literally that we are disconnected. That's what the forgetfulness is. It's a disconnect. What are you disconnected from? You're disconnected from your emotions. You're disconnected because you're in avoidance. You're disconnected because you become something and now you have an attachment to it and you don't know how to get it. And so there's all this space that we forget, again, that we have right available to us. It's like it could be as fast as flicking on a switch. You can quit the job. You can not drive there. You can take that trip. You can say, you know what, I'm going to do this instead. You can make different choices. But we align ourselves with these spaces that we get afraid of the next step. And to answer your question, that this is where I come in, where someone feels like they are so tightly wound, almost like they can't move, they're frozen. This is where I help people reconnect with helping their nervous system, because that's really what is we get so wound up, so tight that even if you're sitting at a desk, you probably have poor posture. You're probably not breathing deeply. You're shallow breathing. You're trying to get 150 emails out by a certain time. There's timelines. And then the reality of life and the universe says there is no time. Time isn't linear, healing isn't linear. And so even just yesterday, having a conversation with an old friend of mine going through grief, saying that, somebody in her life passed and she's, kind of confused. This is coming up now. It's been 3 years. And I said the same thing. Time is not linear. We have to heal ourselves and work on ourselves every single day so that we understand when anything arrives, we are capable of dealing with it. So I take everybody back. I take all my clients back to the basics. And it sounds so simple, but any change, although yes, it's possible, it gets a little tricky because again, we get so deeply wound into our routine, right? Our patterns, our schedules, and everything has to be cookie cutter in this way. And especially if you work in a corporate job or you have a lot of rules that you need to work through or live by, rather, that kind of makes you feel like, well, where do I fit in as a human? Where's the natural sense of who I am? How do I get back to being me? Because we really get so attached and tied into other people, what they're doing, like you said earlier. And also, we're just programmed so much by so many things, by education, by politics, by religion, by what's on the TV, and so we need to adopt better choices for ourselves individually and what makes sense for us. And one way to do that really is the slowing down, because the reason people go so fast is because they don't want to feel the feelings. Why do you not want to feel the feelings? You don't want to face yourself. Why don't you want to face yourself? Because it hurts, because it's hard. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And it doesn't mean that it has to be overwhelming. So there's ways that, by the way, everything that I do with my clients, I've done with myself and I continue myself. This is all very real stuff. I don't just, I'm not selling something and I'm not using it myself. I do this all myself, all day, every day for decades. It's like who I am. I don't even know how not to do this. It's just, and so the people that come to me and the even friends, just everybody I know, there's always something to gain from each other, where if you think about it, everything is a lesson. Everything is a point of even the worst things that happen in our lives. There's always lessons. There's always something to learn from anything, big or small. But when it comes down to all of it, it's slowing down so you can face yourself. And it really is, as silly as the saying is, it really is one step at a time. It's just one foot in front of the other, slowly doing one thing and then adding on, slowly adding on, slowly adding on. Because a lot of people like to just throw things and then that doesn't work. And then they go, well, I tried it all. I've done it all. It didn't work. But have you? So it's how we're being, who we're being, when we're doing the thing.
I'm going to give you a bit of insight for yourself, and this is going to definitely help with the audience too, because I want them to answer this question as well. Who's happier, the businessman on private jets and yachts, or the monk in the monastery just meditating all by himself?
The monk, to me.
How so?
He is not dealing with outside interference of making money, of having to have pressure on himself, other than to sit with himself, although there is pressure for every human. You can't escape pressure. You can't, that's, how you get a diamond, right? So the inner work doesn't mean that it's not hard. The guy that has the jet, he worked hard for that too. So either way you look at it, it's difficult, it's challenging, it's struggle. And we're unraveling the layers of ourselves. And honestly, now that I'm saying all this, I can't really tell you who's happier. My first instinct is to say the monk, but then also, we don't know enough here. It could be both of them equally. Just because the guy has all these things, maybe that's what makes him happy at the end of the day. My thing would be who is living in ego, who is not. Who is really being their natural selves? Who is aligned with their higher selves? If the answer is both of them, great. It doesn't matter if one's a monk, if one's a DJ, it doesn't matter what they do. It matters who they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. In a world of, I guess, comparison and also of career. So we all have a career. So we say we are something because our career also develops our identity. So we're a firefighter, we're a police officer, we're a doctor, we're a nurse, we're a lawyer. And of course, when we have different job titles, they bring about a different level of, I guess the best word is of not confidence, but of authority. So if maybe someone was a lawyer and I was a garbage man, and then you were at the same restaurant eating, and the lawyer asked, "Hey, what do you do for work?" You say, "I'm a garbage man." It's like, "Oh, you're a garbage man, huh?" And the garbage man can ask, "Oh, you're a lawyer." It's like, "Oh, you're a lawyer. Wow, that's an amazing job." And so we give ourselves this stigma of careers or what people have done. So if someone has attained a private jet or a yacht, we say, "Whoa, that person is either highly disciplined or lucky, or they have a lot of wealth." Maybe we look at the monk and we say we found someone who can find stillness in being alone. Like, how many people can go out to the restaurant by themselves or go to the movie theater by themselves? Not many, because they don't want to be alone. Because you know what happens when you're alone? You have to do exactly what you said earlier on. You have to pay attention to what you're feeling. And so people don't want to feel that because they don't want to deal with all of the skeletons that they have been dealing with, or all the garbage that they've been sweeping under the rug or throwing into the closet, because it is easier to put a Band-Aid over something than to say, you know what, let me do the surgery. Let me heal the wounds. If something is broken, especially like marriages, for example, it is easier to throw it away and get a new one, even though it's kind of hard to, be in relationships today where it's like, all right, now I got to know their favorite color again. I have to figure out what they like. And so there's a lot of trouble there too. But I think when people see adversity, they say, you know what, let me steer clear of that. Then maybe on the sea, if they see a storm that they can go around, they would. If they see an iceberg, they're not going to be like Titanic and say, okay, let's see who wins, right? So they are learning from, of course, experiences, but then they're also trying to figure out what is the best course for themselves. And sometimes you have to go on the journey of life. It's not so much that we can say that the person in the jet on the yacht is a better person or is living a better life or versus the monk, because maybe we haven't even lived either. So we don't know. And I've lived with money, I've lived with no money. And most of the time when you ask people that question, is it better to live with money or without money? To live with money is better, right? But it's not to say that to live with money is the only option. It's not to say that to live with money is going to bring you happiness, because there's a lot of things that have to happen when you do get this money or you do become an authority, that you're becoming more aware. Because I can't tell you how many clients who are millionaires or billionaires here in Austin area, and their lives are just a wreck. They are just a wreck. And it's not because they're not successful. It's because they're moving so quickly. They're not slowing down. They're not paying attention, whether it be their kids or their business. There could be just something in their life that's going haywire. It's like almost imagining like you have a string and you have a rocket at the end of it, and you're just swinging the string. Which one is going to go first, the string or the rocket? We don't know. But eventually we will. And if the string goes before the rocket, was the rocket ready to launch? So sometimes we can be unprepared for what life gives us. And then we feel as if we're thrown into the chaos of what life is. And sometimes it's like a storm for us where we're crashing and we're drowning and we're trying to survive. So for those individuals who are stuck in the middle. They're trying to figure out what they want to do because, as you said, everyone can change. Everyone can enhance themselves. But when we say it, it seems almost simple. It seems almost easy. But then I think of how challenging it is for change to occur. Because if you can just think about any moment in your life where you had to do a big change, it wasn't just an overnight thing. Or maybe your husband or your wife or something where you wanted them to change or they were changing in a moment of their life and you're like, whoa, it's challenging. It's not something that you say, okay, I'm going to change, and you change. Even when I was transitioning from business, finance, accounting to teaching, it was like a huge change. It was a huge transition. It wasn't easy. It was a lot of nights or days I felt like, am I doing the right things? There was a lot of questions. There's a lot of doubt. So when people are dealing with all of these different circumstances of which paths do they choose, how can they be more certain, or how can they help to find that this is what they should be looking at?
I would say that they just need to look within. Because here's the issue. Everybody's looking at the external world around them, right? And again, I always point things back. I boomerang back to self. That's where it all ends. That's where it all begins. And or you could say it the opposite way. We come into this world naked. We're a soul. And this is why I say a lot about how we're programmed. Because here's the deal. When you're born, naked, soul, come in, you're clothed. You are given things for your body. You are measured. You are, put into a school. You are told what to do. All these things are swirling and whirling around your brain. You are given what to think. You are given what to eat. You are given what to drink. You're speaking in ways over time that aren't even necessarily you. You are thinking in ways that aren't even you. And so at the end of this, think of all the years when you think of it in this way, because I always think about this idea or philosophy that when you go from birth to death and you go through the string of your entire existence, and when everybody is also, let's add the fast pace on too, right? Now you're getting even inherently more far away from who you really are. And so that's where you have to unlearn and relearn and repackage yourself and point it all back inside. It's not about the job. It could be any job. It could be any partner. It could be any friendship. It's who are we being in these moments? And then you just keep unraveling more and more and more until there's nothing left, until the ego it's never gone, by the way, because ego is part of our survival, just like you can't have light without dark or vice versa. These things are always there because they are teachers. So I thank God for ego. I thank God for darkness. But all that being said, if you don't direct it and redirect it and constantly, it's always we get in tunnel vision all the time and we just get stuck, and we have this notion that this is why our nervous systems are all awry. And this is why everybody freaks out on occasion. They really just get, this feeling of, I can't do this. They say the word I can't so much. And they forget that the walls and the barriers that you've created in your external world, you created because you weren't opening up to yourself and all the possibilities and all the limitlessness. It's actually right there in hand's reach, a step away, a thought away, a word away, an action away. So I love helping people remind themselves of this because I'm in the same boat. I'm not a robot teaching, or guiding people, or same as you. You don't go, hello, I am Michael, switch on. And, you have all these big, beautiful thoughts and creativity and intelligence because you've worked for that, right? Yes, our families gave us all these amazing qualities and traits that we have to this day, but there are things that are not meant for us. And if we don't first uncover, because we have to learn about ourselves and then discover more about ourselves, then we're really doing ourselves a huge disservice, because I see it like a roller coaster, or just driving yourself on a monorail, right? You're just going, because this is us, right? We're just going, we're taking ourselves along for a ride every single day. We're like, okay, where are we going now? But we're working with the universe and we forget. We just think we're alone. And this is why we have depression and anger and all the negative feelings, because we feel alone and we feel like we don't have choice and we feel limited. But none of that's true. None of it. And so I always like to think, okay, in a more excited way, where am I taking myself today? And it's not like, who am I going to be? It's just, how is this going to feel? How do I want it to feel for me today? Even going on a podcast with you today, or on the many that I've been on, it's all a feeling. It's, what do we bring to the table as human with our skills and our talents and our experiences? But at the end of this, how do we want to make each other feel? It starts with how we feel ourselves. Because if I came here in a horrible mood, obviously this conversation is going to go like this, and you're going to be like, she's nuts. I wish I wasn't talking to her right now. But if my energy is higher and I have things to share from my heart and from a slowed down, reflective kind of vibe, then you're going to feel that. You're going to feel like, okay, you know what? It's like when you meet someone, you just know right away if they're cool, if they're not cool. You feel the vibe. Sometimes you don't even have to have a conversation. Sometimes it's literally the energy. It could be somebody standing next to you at a bus stop and you're like, ooh, that person's not having a good morning. You just feel it, right? It's the same thing, taking yourself throughout life. And I always like to look at it as a ripple effect, because it's not only who am I, how am I being for myself, then you take it out to humanity. It's what am I doing that is for the greater good? So even the person at the grocery store, even the person that you bump elbows with at your kid's karate class, by accident or something, it's all energy, and it's all, what are we giving to others, not just ourselves. So it doesn't matter, the trash man, the monk, the guy that owns the jet, who are these people being? What are they finding out what they're made of? Or are they just sitting in these titles and these labels that society gives them? Because I think life is so much bigger than that. And I that's why I love having conversations with people like you that are so open-minded and allow for expansion. Like, if you got to allow for your brain to think bigger than just what we're told, but also to tap into our intuition too, and to allow our energy to match and get higher and bigger, so that we can actually meet well past what we even think our goals are. Because goals are a funny word for me too, just like stuck. I think the word goals is very, very funny. I think it's a little tricky, because people are looking for something in a destination instead of the feeling of the journey to get there. It's not just the arrival. It really is the experience that lends itself there.
There's a I don't know if it's a sitcom or a show or just shorts, where people were talking about teleportation, right? They're saying you could teleport things places, right? So eventually one day there's going to be teleportation, right? We don't know when, it's not going to be in our life, but it's going to happen, right? Like, people are going to create this, right? If you can believe it, you can achieve it. They were talking about, would people use this teleportation device to teleport light years or miles away? And most of the conversation was that they would use it for objects like a purse or a backpack, but they wouldn't want to put themselves in there or their kids in there, because what if things went awry and it didn't work out exactly quite well? So then now we're faced with, we don't mind getting our stuff quick, but then when we have an option to slow down and to go on a journey, we're more prone for that. Maybe because it's in our DNA. We've always been traveling, but it's just have gotten quicker. And it's going to be to the point where it's extremely quick. Before we were walking, then we got on a horse and a buggy, and eventually we started to develop these motorized cars, and eventually we started flying, and now we have rockets and these bullet trains. So we have all of these different technologies that are helping us move to our destinations a lot quicker. But then I also ask myself, like, the journey, like, how would it feel just to walk again? How would it feel to slow down and to pay attention to the birds and the bees and the trees that are waving in the wind? Sometimes we can look back at the simple life of the life before technology. It was easier, it was simpler, but it can be more challenging for the next generation that have been growing up with it because they don't, or they haven't seen the difference. And I say that if I had the option to get someplace very quickly and the option to slow down, not gonna lie, is if I'm with my kids, I want to get there very quickly. But if I'm by myself, I wouldn't mind slowing down. And it's just the idea of kids, and like they're just restless. But either way, sometimes we have to understand sometimes like our season, right? Because the season of frustration with kids, like where they're running around, they're doing the things that they're not supposed to be doing at the airport. And you're like, oh my goodness, like I have to be with them on the airplane for the next 5 hours. Like this is going to be challenging, especially if you're going to Europe or something. Yeah. And now we're talking about 14 to 18 hours. So it's different perspectives for different people. And I think about all these aspects of our conversation today. And I want to bring up one thing, especially about coaching in session, because you brought up of like you go on different podcasts, you have different energies, and I laugh because it's so funny because I've spoken to so many guests in the whole span of coaching in session, and sometimes they have very negative energy and very low energy, and I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a tough one. This is going to be a tough one today, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be a bad one.
No,
because I take every opportunity to learn. This is not to say that you said that. This is just to kind of present an idea to the audience where I believe every episode, there's a lesson in there. Everyone has something to teach us, whether they're on their 100% or they're on their 10%. If they're on their 10%, it doesn't mean that they gave me only 10% because they wanted to. Maybe they were going through grief like your friend was. Maybe they're going through a hardship, or they're going through a transition and they're having all of these thoughts in their mind. And sometimes it's difficult to be present when your mind is absent. So this is an opportunity for many people who are listening to ask themselves a question like, am I present? Am I aware? Am I truly living, or am I a person that wants to explore? And if you are a person that wants to explore or learn more about yourself, now is an opportunity for you to do that. Samantha is not only here to help people get unstuck or unfrozen or to not allow them to stagnate any longer, but to help them to realize like their consciousness, their true consciousness. Because we can all simply say, oh, you should be this, you should do that, you should be that guy in the jet or on the boat or the monk in the monastery. That's easy to say that. The hard work comes into who do you want to be? Who do you want to become? Right? That B aspect in your emails, that capital B.
Yeah.
That's important, right? Who do you want to be? And as we begin to close, Samantha, I would love to get some final words, some final thoughts. And then, of course, please tell everyone how they can find you, reach out, and begin working with you.
Sure. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your non-judgmental, unbiased view of that last piece, because it's very important to understand. And I don't want what I said to be misconstrued. I like to bring high energy myself. That's just because that's what I like to do. I like other people to feel at a higher frequency with me. But that being said, I do love that you also are bringing an honesty and a humility to the conversation, which is just as important as bringing your best, right? Because the truth is, we are human and we don't always bring our best. Yesterday I had an instance that happened to me physically that I was like, do I need to cancel today talking to you, to be honest? And then I said, no, I'm going to power through it. And I did. And I am. But there's always moments that we're like, can I handle this? Is this too much? And at least for me, and that's the point, is we need to teeter totter between finding out for ourselves how much is too much how much is not enough in every facet of life that we take ourselves, in all our relationships, in our job, in even all the things, all the duties that we give ourselves, the tasks we give ourselves in our day to day. But honestly, only you know. No one else can tell you, oh, those 50 things you did is too much. No, maybe it wasn't enough. Maybe I was having a good, energetic day. Maybe it was great. So to end this, I would just say that it's really up to the individual. This is why I'm so big on getting to know yourself, because you can go to a coach, you can hire a lawyer, you can hire all these different, or go to a sound bath or do all these things. You can do healing. You can have people help you and support you and build a team, which is a beautiful thing to do, because when you find people that are experts, are really great at what they do, and you know that you can trust them, there's nothing wrong with building a team. It's a great way to go in life. However, we should still always entrust in ourselves and in our own intuition first and foremost, even before our, best friends or our mom or whatever. It always comes back to you. And if you're someone that feels wonky about, well, I don't know how to tap into my intuition, then that means you should, because then you're making choices from maybe your mom's perspective or your job's perspective. And don't you want to make choices for yourself? So that's where I try to help people. But I am on social media. My company is Roots Wings Wellness. I'm the founder, and I've been doing this for about a decade. And I'm mostly on Instagram at Roots Wings Wellness. I have a free guide, The Art of Nonconformity, 5 powerful tips to break free and live authentically, that I offer through my website, www.rootswingswellness.com. And thank you so much for having me on today. It's been a very eye-opening and wonderful conversation. You're just highly intellectual, and you just are full of experience in life. You just have so much depth. So this has been really cool. Thank you.
Of course. And I'm going to make it easy for all the audience members on the first hand that all your links are going to be right down below, so they can easily get your guide. They can check you out on social media, and then they can peruse your website, and they can do all the back work before they do the conscious work of reaching out to you. I think it's important that we realize that sometimes in life, it's not going to always just be cut and dry. It's not going to always be exactly how we want it. I know there's a lot of people who just want the easy paths in life. They say, I just want to win the lotto. I just want my parents to get off my back. I just want, my spouse to listen to me and do what I say, not leave the socks on the floor anymore. It could be just the smallest things, and we can really gripe on them. And sometimes those small things can be perceived or positioned in our mind in different lights. We can say, at least I have someone that is leaving these socks on the floor and making my life miserable. Or that you can say, this is so challenging to have someone who's a snob and a pig. Oftentimes it's how we speak about someone. So it's not always just about ourselves, like how we speak to ourselves. I think that's a huge part into how you speak to others as well. Because if you speak to yourself kindly, it's a good probability you're going to speak to others kindly. And it's going to trickle down. And we have to do that self-work. We have to do that awareness work. If there's aspects of your life that are struggling, begin with yourself. Figure out what your values are or what you need to do. There's so many aspects to what life is. It's not just career. It's not just relationships. It's not just our belongings. There's a meaning to life that each of us has to find. We have to create that. And going back to that quote, or that idea that you had in the beginning from the gentleman, I forget his name. He said to be here now. And right now is an opportunity for everyone to be here, to simply look at their life and to ask themselves, do you want to go deeper? And if the answer is yes, all the links are right down below. Reach out to Samantha, learn more about yourself, and begin that journey in life. Just because you're 50 doesn't mean you can't go on a new journey. Just because you're 20 doesn't mean that you're not ready for the journey yet. There is no age. There is no time for you to be ready for that moment. So take it today. I do want to thank you, Samantha, for coming on, spending some time and, of course, talking about your work today.
Thank you.